There is a face on Mars. NASA photographed it in 1976. A rocky formation lit by the sun at just the right angle, staring back at the camera from 300 million kilometers away. Millions of people saw it. Newspapers ran it. Conspiracy theorists built entire belief systems around it. When the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter photographed the same spot in 2001 with dramatically better resolution, the face was gone. Just a hill, shadows, and rock. Nothing more. Your brain put the face there, and it will do it again today, before you finish watching this. Here is what is actually happening inside your skull every time you see a face in a cloud, hear a voice in static, or feel certain that a coincidence means something. Your brain is running a process so old, so automatic, and so deeply wired into your survival system that you cannot turn it off. Not even when you know about it. Not even right now. The process has a name: apophenia. Psychologist Klaus Conrad coined the term in 1958 to describe the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things. But the mechanism behind it goes back millions of years before language, before thought, before anything recognizable as human. Imagine your ancestors standing in tall grass 200,000 years ago. There is a rustling. It might be wind. It might be a predator. Your ancestor has two options: assume it is nothing and stay put, or assume it is a threat and run. If they assumed threat and were wrong, they wasted energy. If they assumed nothing and were wrong, they were eaten. Evolution did not select for accuracy. It selected for survival. And survival meant erring on the side of seeing something rather than nothing. Seeing a predator that was not there cost almost nothing. Missing a predator that was there cost everything. That asymmetry is still running in your brain right now. Neuroscientist Michael Shermer at Chapman University calls this patternicity, the tendency to find meaningful patterns in meaningless noise. He argues it is the default operating mode of the human brain, not a bug, not an error, but the core feature that kept your ancestors breathing long enough to produce you. The problem is that the same system that once scanned grass for predators now scans the news for conspiracies, social media for signals about your status, and random events for signs that the universe is sending you a message. The hardware has not changed. Only the environment has. Go deeper into the mechanics. Your brain is not a passive receiver. It is a prediction machine that constantly generates expectations about what it is about to perceive and then filters incoming data through those expectations. Neuroscientist Carl Friston at University College London formalized this as predictive processing. Your brain generates a model of what it expects to see and compares that model against reality. When there is ambiguous data, noise, shadows, static, clouds, your brain does not wait for more information. It fills the gap. It pattern matches to the nearest familiar template and presents you with a confident perception. The nearest familiar template for your social species is almost always a face. In 2009, researchers at Uppsala University in Sweden demonstrated that the face detection system in the human brain activates before conscious awareness even kicks in. The visual cortex is already processing a potential face before you know you are looking at one. You do not decide to see a face. Your brain decides for you and hands you the conclusion. This is why pareidolia, the specific form of apophenia, where you see faces and figures in random objects, is universal across all human cultures. Every culture that has ever existed has seen faces in the moon. Every culture has found figures in clouds. Every culture has heard voices in wind and running water. It is not superstition. It is neurology. But here is where it becomes genuinely dangerous, because the same mechanism does not stop at faces. Your brain applies pattern detection to everything, to sequences of events, to data, to other people's behavior, to your own life story. In a landmark 1948 experiment, Psychologist by Seth Skinner placed hungry pigeons in a box and delivered food at random intervals, completely unrelated to anything the pigeon did. Within minutes, the pigeons had each developed a ritual. One turned counterclockwise before the food arrived. One bobbed its head. One swung from side to side. The pigeons had detected a pattern that did not exist and built a behavior around it. Skinner called it superstition. The behavior felt like it was working because the food kept arriving, randomly, which the pigeon's brain interpreted as confirmation. You are doing a version of this every day. When you wear the shirt you happen to be wearing the last time something good happened. When you avoid the route you took the day something went wrong. When you feel certain that thinking about someone made them call, your pattern detection system has found a connection in noise and your brain has filed it as real. Psychologist Peter Brugger at University Hospital Zurich spent decades studying this. He found that people with higher dopamine levels show stronger apophenia. More dopamine, more pattern detection, more connections seen in randomness. This is why creative people tend to score higher on measures of apophenia. The same cognitive looseness that generates artistic connections also generates false ones. It is a feature and a vulnerability simultaneously. And in the modern world, the vulnerability is being exploited at industrial scale. Every recommendation algorithm you interact with is built on a simple insight. Your brain is desperate to find patterns, and if you show it data that appears to confirm a pattern it already suspects, it will pull toward that data with enormous force. The algorithm does not need to convince you of anything. It only needs to keep feeding your pattern detector enough ambiguous signal to keep it engaged. Enough to make the noise feel like it is saying something. Enough to make the coincidences feel like they are connecting. Once your brain decides a pattern is real, it begins actively filtering out data that contradicts it and pulling in data that confirms it. The pattern becomes self-reinforcing. The belief becomes unfalsifiable. And you feel more certain with every piece of confirming noise, never realizing that your brain is the one selecting which pieces of the noise you even notice. You saw a face on Mars in 1976 because your brain was doing exactly what it was built to do. The face was never there, but the system that put it there is still running, right now, in you, on everything you look at. The question is not whether your brain sees patterns that do not exist. It does. It always will. The question is whether you know which ones to trust.